Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play ActRaiser. In the last part we started off the game and finished up Fillmore after going through its stages in the sim section. And now it's time for us to head on over to its neighboring country of Bloodpool to do just the same. I have sworn I will be silent for that every single time, and I will keep that swear. Bloodpool is a bit more dangerous than Fillmore right off the bat because it has a constant threat of instant death through the little poisonous swamp below us. Thankfully, there are plenty of platforms for you to stand on in case you need to actually jump over the actual, guess, poison swamp. I'm not exactly sure what this is supposed to be. If you're going directly over it, there's usually a platform in there to save you, even though it'll fall immediately afterwards. And, I think the knockback can save you, because this game does have knockback when you're in midair. It's very small, but it has saved me in the past. It's not as bad as any of the given Belmonts prior to Simon and 4. Which, cool, I guess. Either way, similarly to Fillmore, we have to fulfill a score quota to get our max population during the simulation section. And we're actually in the section I'm going to be doing it in, because we're past the checkpoint at this point, and there's a 1-up there that, as with all 1-ups, respawns upon death. So once I finish this section, I'm going to be grinding up a good bit, actually. Because the score total that we need in order to get max population in Bloodpool is 27,100 between the two acts. Generally, you'll be safe if you get to around 22,000 points at this point, but I went above and beyond to get to 24,000 or so. And it's time for our second boss, which is... I can't tell if this is supposed to be a chimera or a griffin. Either way, its pattern always makes it try to go on the opposite side of the stage where you are. So, for instance, if you're on the bottom 2 of either side, it'll stick to the 3 on the opposite side before it jumps over to the top one of your side at the end of its pattern. But essentially, you want to use your 2 magical fires that you got just to get some extra damage in early on, and then the pattern becomes this. Where I'm standing at least. Jump out of the left, jump up the left, firing a fireball with each jump or fall, jump across, and then jump back down. Your goal is to take a slice at it when it's jumping across to you. You can generally get 2. I have gotten 3 hits in on that, but 2 is generally going to be your average. Honestly, I think this boss is easier than the Centaur at Fillmore. And in a way, I guess that's partially intentional, because the cool thing about this game is, I showed off last part that you can only technically tackle certain areas once you're a certain level. But I don't think anything is stopping you from, say, doing the first action stage in Fillmore, reaching your level up a few times, and then heading on over to Bloodpool to do its first action stage. I think if you just go for max population in each town first try too, you can technically be max level before you tackle any of the second action stages, which is pretty cool, I have to say. I wouldn't recommend doing it just because it's not too worth it in the long run. Plus, that's a lot of gaps between some of the action stages, and that means the difficulty is going to go all over the place, but it's a feasible strategy, I suppose. This boss can also go on a while if you haven't noticed. But now it's gone, and that's the first action stage for Bloodpool complete. Time to start off its simulation section, which is probably one of the more annoying to get max population in. More on that in a few moments. But we immediately have new environment tiles to deal with, which is going to be interesting. Actually, it's not that interesting at all. Like with the trees, they're pretty quick to deal with. Sir Moyle, Bloodpool may become a land where people can live in peace. Alright, my master, let us work towards peace. And they already have something for us. My master, it has become very difficult trying to build homes because of the marshlands. Would you please use sunlight to dry up the marshlands? Alright. So yeah, if you see any wetland tiles like this in your maps, you need to use the Sun Miracle, which I think costs 20 or 30 SP to actually do something with it. But before I do anything else, I do want to save, because This is the part from onwards where I start to use the methodology of I recorded the first action stage, took a break, recorded the sim section, took a break, and then recorded the second action stage and took a break. However, before we take care of any of the marshlands, we do want to take care of the trees here in the top left to some extent, just so we can have that way cleared. This stage introduces a new enemy type, though, for the sim sections. A red devil, who at this point I believe is in the bottom left of the stage. So yeah, it's 30 FP for these suns, so that's a bit expensive. However, at the moment, the Red Devil is not going to really do anything, because its attack is to dry up any given fields that your town makes, be it cornfields or otherwise. And even then, it's not even that dangerous, because unlike, say, the bats who could kidnap people and potentially keep you from seeing a lair if you have very low population, or the dragons who can just outright kill a bunch of people at once, you can outright repair the devil's attack immediately, because you can just use a rain miracle on the dried up farmland to restore it. My master, we have a problem. It's about my oldest son, Teddy. We're worried that his curious energy may get him into trouble. Well, I know it's something to bother you with. I'm searching for bringing up such a silly matter. I also like, it's a bit of a detail I like about ActRaiser. Basically, every area has its own plot, albeit it's very simple, and we actually don't get really to see any of it because we're too busy, you know, trying to guide the people along their pathway, but yeah, it's an attempt. But yeah, say if the Red Devil ended up getting towards that cornfield, he could dry it up. Honestly, though, it's not the most dangerous thing. Oh, and horses! I like that they added in a couple of other creatures as you go through some of the other stages. It just makes the areas feel a bit more alive. And something I should apologize for, I don't think I mentioned last part, and I'm not even entirely sure if it's going to persist like this, is that some of the videos in this LP are obviously going to be on the longer side, closer to a half hour. That's, again, due to my flow idea of doing an entire region in one part. Some of the regions are quicker than the others. I'm thinking some of the last ones in particular. But don't be surprised if a lot of the videos in this LP get towards the 30-minute mark. I am actually getting ahead of myself here with this building path, by the way. Because I want to do that later, but for right now I just want to go right to the monster lair. Because similarly to Bloodpool, structures can play an integral part in whether or not you'll be reaching max population in Bloodpool. I think it's a bit more forgiving than it was in Fillmore, but you still need to be careful. Though again, you don't need to reach max population for max level. It's more or less just bragging rights if you do it to begin with. Also, gee, I wonder why this area is called Bloodpool. And that's the bats out of here. Now I just have to deal with, what, 2 dragons and a red devil at a time? But hey, the civilization level's up, which that's all good and dandy. My master, as you know, Bloodpool is a land of many rivers. We want to build homes on the outside of the rivers, but don't know how to build bridges. Please teach us how to build bridges. Well, thankfully we picked up some bridges back in Fillmore, so let's use that on them. Sir Moyle, with this, the people will now be able to build bridges. Also, why do they know what bridges are, but not know how to build them? That kind of requires knowing... That's kind of one of those things that you kind of need to know how to build them to know they exist, or at least have a general idea. Either way, because of that, this is where the structural limit can come into play, because if you build too many bridges, you're gonna screw yourself into max population. I think the amount you need to have minimum in this area is 3. Also, we reached level 6, so that's nice and dandy, I guess. No, they already have something for us again. My master, we now know how to grow a crop called wheat here in Bloodpool. Please share our newfound crop with the lands that cannot produce wheat. Wheat tiles are a support structure similarly to cornfields, only except it's supporting 32 people like cornfields do. Wheat fields support 48. And therefore, for our structural limit, it's important to actually destroy any cornfields that have been built at this point, so either they'll just not be counted towards the structural limit, or to just have more green areas and such. The structural limit's what's important there. Though I'm going to leave that other cornfield around for now, just so I can, you know, have my people be supported. And I think it's important that you actually follow my various steps with how I went around that mountain there. I'm not entirely sure about that. And the Red Devil is actually... I want to say the Red Devil targets wheat fields more actively than he does cornfields, because the wheat fields are just drenched in water, obviously, so he likes to target those a bit more often. Before I get back onto that topic, though, it's important to note that you might remember last part I mentioned a certain mechanic that I would talk about this part. Let's check our populations in the status of cities. Notice how Fillmore is now 914 instead of 906 like it was at the end of last part. If we go over there, we can even confirm that. I'm going to be building out roads, by the way, right now, just because I like the grid structure better. This goes into an element I talked about, mentioning last part, rather. This is phantom construction. Essentially, the max population for Fillmore actually is 914. It's not 906. Make no mistake. In fact, if you look around somewhere, there's actually an extra house. Essentially, what phantom construction is that there's space for one more house, and they can support it with the support units you have. However, the humans that go to build the houses actually do follow certain paths, or at least randomized paths. But the path that would lead to that last house in the case with phantom construction, which happens in a few areas, is blocked off. My master, our son Teddy, has run away from home. We have looked everywhere for him, but we cannot find him. He must be very hungry now. Oh, my master, we have made a loaf of bread. Please find Teddy and give him the bread. So phantom construction is going to happen a couple times off-screen, just because it's the only way the game can actually build those houses and have them be supported. Also, there's a hidden monster layer over there. The game's going to start hiding them behind some tiles like that, but it's nothing too major. Either way, we do need to find Teddy right away, though, because this does stop population growth. So, we need to go and actually grab the bread from the offering menu. Also, I should grab the wheat. This is a crop called wheat. Crop of wheat can feed many more people than crop of corn. Please share a harvest of wheat with other lands so they may feed more people. Cool. Loaf of bread. Oh, master, please give this loaf of bread to poor, lonely Teddy. This is all we have for you this year. Thank you for accepting a humble offering, my master. Teddy is, to say the least, easy to spot because, gee, I wonder. Just place it on top of him. What will Teddy think when he sees the bread? Good question. Thanks to you, my master, our son Teddy is now back home. The loaf of bread reminded him of home and caused him to return. He didn't mean to run away. He was trying to discover how the lake was poisoned. We have always thought our son to be a small child. It was a surprise to see him act as a grown man. According to Teddy, the lake was poisoned because of its closeness to the monster's lair. We present to you with this skull that he found in the cave. Please accept it. This is kind of a weird plot element. But we have a magic skull. According to this fortune teller, this jewel can even destroy a monster's lair. Please use it on a monster's lair we can't seal. This is the only way you can seal the Red Devil's lair. In fact, I think this is the only time the game does this in general. So it's, kinda weird. Either way, let's just head on down there and take care of it in a few moments, though. I can finally get rid of this cornfield because I actually have the support units that can, cover up the other 32 people. Mind you, it's not like... I think I killed 32 people doing that anyway, so whoops. If you are new to the game, though, I do recommend saving before you cross any of the rivers because, again, bridges are tricky and can screw you over. So let's be careful with that. Sir Moyle, look, something's about to happen to the water in Bloodpool's lake. And there it goes, it's blue now. Dabba-dee-dabba-die. I see, the real cause for Bloodpool's poison water is the location of the Red Demon's lair. Well, they actually have something to tell us. My master, we began to use our boat for fishing. Some time ago, while fishing on the lake, we found a magic scroll caught in our dragnet. We present this to you as an offering. Please accept it. I'll grab that eventually. Either way, I showed it up, I actually never really talked about it. Once they grow wheat in this town, you can take it as an offering and take it to any town that grows cornfields and replace their cornfields with wheat fields just to, I guess, get some more green spaces. Either way, if we rain on that part of the river... Oh, master, the recent rainfall has caused the lake to rise. The rising water revealed this strange jewel which we found on the lakeshore. Please accept it as an offering. That is also a pretty interesting thing. Let's grab both of the things we just got told about. Source of Life, which gives you more extra lives permanently, and Magical Stardust. This scroll must belong to you, my master. Please accept it as an offering. It's another spell, and it's absolutely the best spell in the game. In fact, I recommend equipping that on yourself immediately and almost never taking it off. It causes a lot of stars to rain down from the sky. You'll see how it treats boss fights. Also, I really hope I at some point take care of that bottom road there, because I have not taken care of it yet, and that's kind of worrisome. Mind you, I guess it's too late to do anything anyway, because I've already recorded the entire game. This is one of those games I did record until I finished it. Which is something I've always kind of been doing to some extent. Like Castlevania 1, I think I recorded all the gameplay first. Mega Man 2, back when I originally did that and such. It's generally, I guess, the longer games, like Mario RPG, the Mega Man Battle Hour games that I did on a record gameplay, edits, do commentary, render basis. Which, I guess that's a very feasible way to do RPGs, at least. Mind you, I guess it's the better way to do RPGs because then you remember what you wanted to edit out and such. Either way, at this point we're crossing the river, and this is where you really want to pay attention to where I'm directing my people. You might notice that I am completely ignoring that one space to the right of the temple. We're ignoring that for a long while, because if I build there in any direction, I will build extra bridges, potentially 2 at once. And for the structure limit, so we can get max population, we don't want that to happen. So we'll be ignoring that space for a good while and building towards some of the other monster layers. Also, I should mention it. In the case you actually run out of HP as the angel, you don't get a game over. By the way, civilization levels improved. Nice. When you run out of HP as the cherub/angel, you just can't fire your arrows. You're doomed to watch enemies do whatever they want to your people for a little bit. I think your HP is restored... I want to say whenever a part of the town is constructed, or whenever an hourglass cycle ends. I'm actually not entirely too sure about that, because I could count the amount of times I've lost HP as the angel to 0 on one hand. My master, we finally finished a road connecting us with our neighboring town, Fillmore. We can now teach them how to produce wheat. So you don't even need to actually spread wheat to Fillmore if you actually do that. Notable though, to have that happen, you do need to build the connecting road in Fillmore that I did during the road grid sequence earlier this part even. It's in the very bottom left near where the last monster layer we sealed there was. So that's important. Though I guess overall it's not too important because it doesn't really do anything. I think the most that square will add for you otherwise is just some population. Anyway, at this point we want to build down here. And we just want to build like that, because like I mentioned, we are going to be building more than one bridge here, and we're building more than 2 even. We're building 1 more, because frankly, with how we build the town, there's just no way to avoid a 3rd one, if I'm entirely correct in that. Which is unfortunate, but it's what we have to do. It's one of the limiting factors of this area. Its structure limit is, unfortunately, a thing we have to deal with. Not for much longer, though. From basically the next area onwards, structures aren't going to be as important in terms of your number. In fact, if anything, size will be the greater limiting factor from the next area onwards. And size is a lot easier to deal with, because at least that's hard-coded. Or at least it's very visibly able... more accurately. Let me start that sentence over again so I don't sound like a verbal vomit. You can see the size of your area, so you can plan ahead on what you're going to be doing. You can't plan ahead without knowing about the structure limit, because the game doesn't tell you about it. So... yeah, that's painful. Also, I know I briefly touched on the game's soundtrack last part, namely when it came to Fillmore Act 1's theme. But I absolutely love the simulation theme. It's very short. It's only like 40 seconds long, I want to say, if even. But you don't really notice that length, because it's just a very jolly track. Either way, let's get rid of this last monster layer. I believe from this we're actually going to get a bomb item. When it comes to the strength of the angels and the bomb items, I recommend saving them until one of the later maps, just because 2 of the last maps in the game have really powerful enemies that the strength of the angel and the bombs will just really make a non-issue. Also notable, you see me do it a couple times here, but watch out for how many wheat you're carrying, because I only recommend having 1 at a time, because that's about all you can do. But it'll also just crowd up your inventory. You can only have up to, I think, 8 offerings on you at a time that aren't spells, sources of lives, or such, or MP. So you need to be careful with that. Either way, at this point, I think you can just outright access the next action stage after you go into the menu and select Let Us Listen. But I do want to work on the population first. My master, since sealing the last monster slayer, something very dreadful has occurred. A monster appeared from the old castle by the lake and demanded a sacrifice of us. We spent hours discussing this hideous demand and sadly determined 3 people should be selected by drawing the lots. Unfortunately, one of those to be sacrificed is my son, Teddy. My master, please go to the old castle and save our son and our land. Alright, so we can now access the second action stage. However, it's time to actually build the area up first. But I actually can't easily get max population right now still because while I could lightning the houses, it's just more efficient for me to actually raise my max population right now. Why? Well, we get the ability to use a certain miracle once we reach level... What level was it again? 8. Because now, our SP is 160. 160 allows us to use the last miracle in the game, an earthquake. This could cause some changes in the continents, but the biggest thing it does is destroy all level 1 and 2 houses at the same time. So that just saves you time in the long run on using lightning to zap 1 square of houses at a time. Level 3 houses are completely immune to it. So from now on, essentially whenever I'm going for max population and I got level 3 houses, I'm probably going to be earthquaking just so I can get a head start on getting max population. By the way, I should mention, the max population for Bloodpool is at 874 if you got the 27,100 score. The reason it has a higher score but a lower max population than Fillmore is because of its starting population of 330. You need to make up roughly 5,500 really people just from the enemy score compared to 400 with Fillmore. And we reached the next level, but we still have a bit more construction to do before we reach that magical 874. And unlike Fillmore, we don't need to wait until Act 2 to get to the max population. And there we go. So with that, it says we're at slow, but we're at max, because I think I mentioned even last part. Even if you have max population in an area, if you haven't beaten Act 2 yet, it'll still say slow on the population growth. So with that, let's head back to the Sky Palace. Accidentally select that instead of the save icon. That happens a couple times, actually. And actually, we're not going to the stage. I have to do road completion. You don't need to do this again. I'm just doing it because it makes me feel better. Though it does actually give a nice visual of the structure limit. Because some of these areas I'm building over should have bridges over them, but no, the road just stops at the water and then continues on the other side. This is why I built the way I did, because otherwise, especially on the tile I'm over right now, I would have had 2 extra bridges that would have lent 2 less houses. With that said, though, let's head into the second action stage. Finally. Stage 2 of this I've always found a bit odd, but it's also one of my favorite stages. Also, I didn't mention it in the Poison Swamp area because we actually couldn't see the full background technically, but I love the background for the exterior shot there with the moon reflecting off the water. They really went all out with some of the backgrounds, even very early in the Super Nintendo's lifespan, because as I mentioned, this was a launch title. Well, sort of. You see, ActRaiser was within launch window, more accurately. It was in the first 6 months of the lifespan, but I generally consider the first few months part of the launch titles anyway, even though I know technically speaking a launch title is what's with the game at launch, kind of like, I'm reminded of the 3DS's abysmal launch titles, ugh. But the Super Nintendo's actual launch titles were Mario World, SimCity, Pilot Wings, Gradius 3, and F-Zero in the US, I believe? Which, honestly, that's still a pretty kick-ass launch title set. About equal with the Genesis's in my eyes, actually, because Genesis US launch had Altered Beast, Thunder Force 2, and Space Harrier 2, I think, so that's pretty good. Also, the spikes there are insta-kill, I believe, but when it came to the elevator sections earlier in the level, I probably should have talked about this when they were actually on screen. The horizontal spikes are instant kill in that case, but not the vertical ones, which is all sorts of inconsistent and confusing, but I'll take the not dying anytime. Also, make sure you save any MP you got for the boss fight, because we're gonna get to see how gorgeous magical Stardust is. You know what, retroactively, this section always reminded me of something, though, and that's some of the elevators from Mega Man 8. In particular, the ones in the hidden area from the intro stage. I say retroactively because Mega Man 8 came out after this, but I played it before ActRaiser. Also, I don't think I mentioned it, but I actually also really like the slash sound effect. I think this is technically called the Master's Incarnation gets. Just that ha ha ha. I don't know why, but I've always found that funny. But also strangely effective. But I also can't tell if that's supposed to be you doing a screech of power or if it's supposed to be the sword slash sound effect. These skeletons are deceptively annoying just because they have a lot more reach than you'd ever think they would. You saw a bit earlier even. Was tempted to edit in the Yoku block sound effect from Mega Man here, but that'd be too much sound editing. With that said, though, this isn't as hard as it would first look, because they have very generous periods of staying open, unlike certain Yoku block sections. Also, weren't they only called Yoku blocks through Mega Man Unlimited? And then everyone just kind of picked it up after that? That sounds about right, but I might need to actually reconfirm that off the top of my head. Either way, boss for this stage is this wizard, and he has a very easy strategy because he likes to stay on the side opposite of you. He only has 2 attacks, a little 3-shot spread shot, which you can dodge very easily. And if he's on one of the higher platforms, he'll then follow it up with some lightning. As you can see, magical Stardust, when he's on a higher level, really kicks his ass. However, if you don't take care of him quickly enough in 2 shots like I can usually, he will become a werewolf like that, which follows you around and I think will like to jump around, but honestly, he rarely gets a chance to attack in that form, so I'm actually not entirely in the clear of what he does. Either way, that's Bloodpool's second action stage, and thus, we're done with this region. For now. Similarly, there is going to be some more stuff we're going to be doing, similarly to Fillmore. We will be doing some more stuff later on, but not for now. My master, we no longer have monsters here in Bloodpool. Thank you so much. My son Teddy has returned from the old castle carrying a precious scroll. We present the scroll to you as an offering. Please accept it. Thank you very much for taking care of us, my master. We can now look after our Celeves. Please help make the lands as peaceful as Bloodpool. It's not a Super Nintendo game without at least one weird spelling error. My master, may sound strange to you, but please hear our plea. Our people have become bitter and selfish, and we have so many quarrels and fights. I'm afraid I worked them too hard in building our town and have caused them too much stress. My master, have you anything that will calm them down? Not on me, but I will take that MP. So yeah, we're technically not done with this area, even though the population is maxed. In fact, if you take a look at the population, it will say it's stopped more so than anything. But I think what this actually stops is just population growth. I think you can still technically build roads when that's happening. I'm actually not entirely sure about that myself. Either way, with that, and us finishing off Bloodpool, me getting some last roads that I forgot to take care of before the actual boss fight for some reason, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we'll be heading on to the next region and see what it has for us both in its action stages and its sim environment. See you guys then.